And now in business news, the president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, says the lack of stable electricity in Nigeria is killing industries in the country, adding that based on an International Monetary Fund report, about $29 billion is lost annually due to poor power supply in Nigeria. He said this in his lecture titled Overcoming Binding Constraints to Competitive Manufacturing for Intra-Regional Trade, which he presented at the Manufacturers Association of Nigerian annual meeting on Tuesday in the Federal Capital Territory. Adesina lamented on the low export revenue generated from the manufacturing sector, representing only 3% of total revenues from exports. He said the manufacturing sector of Nigeria represents only 3% of total revenues from exports, but account for 50% of imports in the country. According to the AFDB president, it is challenging to be a manufacturer in Nigeria, with one of the major challenges being the very high cost of unreliability of electricity supplies. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) yesterday said Nigeria's demand for petroleum products is expected to grow from 15.1 million metric tons last year to 17.3 metric tons by 2025. Its group managing director, Malam Melekiari, made this known in a keynote address at the 15th Oil Trading and Logistics (OTL) Africa Petroleum Downstream Expo in Lagos. Represented by the Group Executive Director Downstream NNPC, Adetunji Adeyemi, the NNPC chief said Nigeria needed a refining capacity of about 1.52 million barrels per stream day to meet its petrol requirements in the next 4 years. The NNPC GMD noted that the refineries 445,000 BPSD and Dangote's refinery 650,000 PPSD running at 60% and nameplate capacity respectively would supply 76% of Nigeria's PMS requirements. According to him, this will leave a shortfall of about 17 million litres of PMS daily. And more business stories, the National Pension Commission says it has recovered 19.29 billion naira monthly pensions deducted from employers from employees' monthly enrollments, but not remitted to their retirement saving accounts with their respective pension fund administrators. Figures obtained from PENCOM's quarterly report on Tuesday show that the recovery included unremitted contributions and sanctions. PENCOM also disclosed its plan to take legal action against some of its employees. The report revealed that following PENCOM's issuance of demand notices to some defaulting employers whose pension contribution liability had been established by recovery agents, recoveries and penalties were made. This brought the total recoveries made from inception to June 30, 2020 to 17.52 billion naira, comprising principal contribution of 8.89 billion naira and penalty of 8.63 billion naira. Meanwhile, 19 defaulting employers have been recommended for appropriate legal action. And now on the African scene, Sudan's armed forces chief defended the military seizure of power, saying he had ousted the government to avoid civil war, while protesters took to the streets on Tuesday to demonstrate against the takeover after a day of deadly clashes. The military takeover on Monday brought a halt to Sudan's transition to democracy 2 years after a popular uprising toppled long-ruling Islamist autocrat Omar al-Bashir. On Tuesday evening, the Sudanese Professionals Association group of trade unions said it had reports of retaliatory attacks by coup forces on protesters gathering sites in the capital, Khartoum, and other cities, using bullets and attempts to break through barricades. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke with Hamdok on Tuesday, welcoming his release from custody and reiterating a call for the Sudanese military to release all civilian leaders in detention, the State Department said. Democratic Republic of Congo's Constitutional Court on Tuesday swore in an electoral commission chief whose contested nomination threatens to weaken President Felix Tshisekedi's doing coalition. The country's religious groups who are seen as impartial and supposed to nominate the head of Independent National Electoral Commission by unanimous vote, but after months of discussion, the 8 nominations failed to reach a consensus And on October 16, Parliament approved Dennis Kadima, an election expert with decades of experience. Shikedi argued Kadima's nomination was legitimate because a majority of religious groups were in favor of it. It crowded a courtroom in Kinshasa on Tuesday. Kadima swore to serve Seni, the president, with independence, neutrality, transparency, and impartiality. And now to the foreign scene. 2 U.S. senators have urged President Joe Biden to waive sanctions against India over its purchase of Russia's S-400 air defense system, saying such punitive measures would endanger growing cooperation. India signed a $5.5 billion deal with Russia in 2018 for 5 of the surface-to-air missile systems for defense against long-time adversary Pakistan and China, with which it is locked in a standoff on their disputed border. But the proposed transfer has caused friction with the United States, which passed a law in 2017, under which any country engaged with Russia's defense and intelligence sectors could face sanctions. Republican Senator John Cornyn and Democrat Senator Mark Warner wrote a letter to Biden on Tuesday, calling for a waiver on the grounds of national security with border cooperation. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida pushed to restart Japanese nuclear power plants idled with Fukushima disaster faces stiff opposition ahead of a general election on Sunday, where his future as leader hangs in the balance if the vote is tight. A decade after multiple or triple meltdown at Fukushima forces mass evacuations and the shutdown of the nuclear industry, Japan has restarted only a third of 33 operable reactors. Debate over whether to fire more of them back is highly charged, with 40% of the population opposing the move. It matters most in rural cities hosting the idle plants which had once relied on them for economic activity, such as Kashiwazaki, 265 kilometers northwest of Tokyo, home of the world's largest atomic power complex.